Hello and welcome into Hoosier Gameday, brought to you by the Hoosier Network. My name is Noel Fary. Alongside me is Liv Clements. And Liv, another week, another Hoosier defeat. This time, Rutgers came into town and kind of handed it to IU.
They really did, but what's unfortunate is IU looked strong at the beginning.
Yep.
I mean, going 14-14 at one point, so I was like, okay, give me a game, IU. But then, of course, they always struggle with the QB run, and Gavin Wimsatt really did that. I mean, he had 16 carries, 143 yards, and 3 touchdowns himself. With that, it's going to be hard to ever win a game. So, unfortunately, yes, they took the L. On to the next game, though.
Yeah, I mean, you said it, Liv. IU has had problems dealing with mobile quarterbacks all season. And even, I mentioned this earlier in the podcast we did earlier this week.
Yes.
Talia Tagovailoa had a fantastic game through the air, but he also ran all over the defense. Yep. So when you have a quarterback who can improvise as good as Wimsatt did this past weekend, and an IU team that has shown that they are incapable of keeping anybody back, not even putting a spy there to keep an eye on him, it's a recipe for disaster, and that kind of showed. I mean, not even just on the defense, but on the offense overall. Yep. The receivers, just kind of everything. Where are the receivers, Liv? I don't know. Jalen Lucas is the leading receiver.
I think I could go on the field and blend in. I really feel like I could go on the field and maybe get a touchdown, because I think at this point, you're right, like, we talk about it every show, though, where we are looking for people to step up, and no one is stepping up. And I think you look for Cam Camber, you look for Jalen Lucas, you look for Donovan McCulley, Omar Cooper. Where are you guys? I'm just like, at this point, you were trying to rely on some QB runs. Clearly, it's not working. You realize Jalen Lucas can't do the team on his own. So right now, there's no offense to really have a spark for IU, and that's, no matter what, never going to let them win a game. For every game they've seen, there's always a QB and a wide receiver, or a QB and a running back that has always dominated the game. I mean, you saw it with Michigan, and now you're about to see it in Penn State. IU has to find a duo that's going to work for them.
Yeah, and we say, where are the receivers? Now, these guys that IU has on the roster, they are all talented individuals. Of course, this is no mention to their athletic abilities or anything like that. I just think it's the system, that they are not being utilized to their full potential. We have seen flashes from every single offensive player on IU so far, and we know that the talent is there. It's just, frustrating for everyone watching when they aren't being utilized and showing off their talent in ways that we know is there.
I mean, like you said, it's not about the talent on the field. I mean, you had Taven getting picked to go to Tennessee, a huge football school. I mean, E.J. Williams at Clements, Kobe Minor, Texas Tech. I mean, it's not like they're not talented and they're just coming out of nowhere. I think, like you said, it's coming down to player development, and it's coming down to just a lack of coaching style that's working for every player. I mean, you have all these different players coming from, like, SEC and all these different conferences, trying to make them all mesh together. It's clearly not working. So I think that's where it's misfortunate that these players are not getting to be seen at their full potential. And for a lot of them, time's ticking.
Yeah, definitely. Now, I do think overall on this team, one of the most important and crucial parts has been that front seven on the defense. The D-line and the linebackers have played a pretty good season so far. I think that's a bright spot.
They've held IU floating, for
definitely.
Sure.
So for a little bit more on that, we're going to bring our first special guest on to take a deeper dive into that positional group. We've got Dylan Traeger in the studio with us today. Thank you so much for taking a break from that podcast booth, Dylan. I know you're there a lot throughout the week.
Thank you, and I appreciate you having me come on today. It's a great opportunity to get on here with you and Liv, and I'm really excited to talk some more IU football.
Cool. So I want to focus in on that front seven for IU, the linebackers and D linemen. So overall, before we get into anything too deep, what grade would you give that positional group overall?
On an A to F scale, I'm going to go out and give them a B+.
Okay, B+.
This IU defense has really made it insightful for IU fans to watch the games. The offense has been really shaky, not putting up points, but the defense has looked good. You look back at that Michigan game, that first quarter, keeping Michigan on a shutout. I mean, come on. That's pretty stellar from the defense.
Yeah, no, definitely. So you take a look at that. You have some big names out there. Aaron Casey, some would argue he's the best player on the team. You got Andre Carter, the transfer. Are there playmakers on that line, maybe not just them, who you think would potentially make an even bigger splash in another system elsewhere?
I think it's kind of hard, but you look at Andre Carter, a guy who's been on the IU program for 6 seasons. A guy like that could definitely go to another team and really use his veteran presence to help him out. You look at this IU defense, it's a lot of upperclassmen, juniors, seniors, 5th and 6th year guys that are transfers. Not a lot of underclassmen, not a lot of coaching to give off.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's hard to predict something like that because you take a look at guys going here and there. It really just comes down to opportunities and whether you execute them or not. So would you say that this positional group is the best that Indiana has to offer?
I definitely would. I think the coaching staff did a great job in the offseason really bringing in transfers, and it's a lot of guys, as I said, from top schools that are coming in. You know, you look at it, Texas Tech, UCLA, Western Michigan, lots of top schools with top defensemen, and Indiana's taking full advantage of it.
Yeah, definitely. Is there a specific player on that line, maybe not one of the bigger names, that you would say is kind of an underrated presence, kind of a game shaker, you know?
You know, I'd even stick on that Andre Carter spot.
Yeah.
You know, I think he's been really underrated, and it's been nonstop, seeing great growth from him, and just a great veteran presence all around.
Yeah, no, definitely. I couldn't agree with you more, Dylan. So we are going to look ahead this weekend to Penn State. We're going to send it over to Liv, who has another friendly face in the studio. Liv?
Welcome back. We've got the Hoosier Network's very own Zion Brown with us today. Zion, thank you so much for taking the time with us today.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. We want to jump right into it. So IU has another tough matchup this weekend, traveling to the Happy Valley to take on Penn State. But Penn State is coming off a loss against OSU 20-12. That puts them 6-1 this season, but yet they have beat UMass and Delaware by a total, guys, of 63 points. It's insane, but that puts them 10th in the nation. Of course, strong QB Drew Alar sitting around 6'5", so that's going to be a big QB. I want to jump into it with you. Going off that Penn State loss against OSU, do you think that's going to kind of put that cloud over them, a little gloomy going into IU, or do you think that's just going to be in the past onto the next?
Yeah, the Nittany Lions took that tough loss against Ohio State where their offense really struggled. The game probably wasn't even as close as the final score was. And sometimes you do see that. I think Penn State is clearly a much better team than Indiana is, but sometimes you see a team take that first gut punch of the season and it takes them a while to kind of get back to them true selves. So I could see maybe a slow offensive start for Penn State in this game. I think their defense will still be fine against Indiana's offense, but I could maybe see a situation where the Penn State offense just isn't hitting on all cylinders as it should be.
Okay, I mean, I have to agree because you also see with, like, let's say Penn State starts off a little slow. IU has a tendency to start off pretty fast going into offense, but I think also looking into IU just as a whole, clearly there's been a struggle offensive, defensively. Defense has been a little bit stronger, like you said, but looking at that, is it really coming down to just for IU a lack of player development, or is it just coming down to a lack of talent on the field?
I would say it's more of a player development issue. Obviously, this Indiana team doesn't have the roster that can really compete with the Ohio States, the Penn States, the Michigans of the world. However, when you look at Ohio or Indiana's lineup matched up with what Rutgers has roster-wise, they're about the same, and Indiana might even have better recruits coming in. It's just a matter of execution and overall development of that players, where you see a game like Rutgers, where Rutgers just runs away with the game, or a game like Maryland, where Maryland might be maybe a little more talented than Indiana is, but they blow them out pretty much from the start. So I think it's more of an execution issue, more of a development issue than actual the pure talent that's on the field.
And so when you say, like, about the players and, like, how you said we have, like, E.J. Williams from Clemson, Cam Camper that we're really looking to shine, of course that battle with the QB with Sorsby and Taven, which are both good QBs to be for IU, I have to say. But when you look into it now going into this game, what for IU is going to give them any sort of life? Like, what is it going to be? New play options? Is it going to be maybe different players starting? Like, what's going to be that thing that gives IU life against this Penn State team?
I'll be frank, I don't think this is a game that Indiana is going into expecting to win. That's not the way they've really spoken about the game in their press conference this week. That's not really the attitude I've gotten from this Indiana team heading into this game. But what I can say is that if they can score, if they can just get points up offensively, that'll give them life. No, get 10 to 17 points in this game, then you can say, okay, we were able to move the ball against a good team, a good defense, and we can take that and take it forward going into the next game against Wisconsin and just going forward the rest of the season. So once again, I don't think this team is like, hey, we're going to come out and shock the world. They're 31.5 point underdogs. I don't see that happening. But if they can say we actually got sustained offense, moved the ball down the field, and scored multiple times against a really good team and a really tough environment, then you could take that and say, okay, the season's not dead quite yet.
Okay, and so like you said, like attitude is such a big thing too. Like you said, they're not going into the game like, oh yes, we got it under our belt, this is going to be the game. But like you said, morale is such a big thing, though. And I think that's why it's hard with this QB struggle is, you're still battling with the QBs. How, does Sorsby find any kind of confidence if, one mistake, he's off the field and that's it? So I think it'll be interesting to see offensively, but I'm interested. So you said 10 to 17 points would be good for IU. What do you think, though, will get them on the board? What do you think the score would be at the end of the fourth?
All right, so I said that, but I don't think they reached that, unfortunately for them. So
that's a hope. That's a maybe.
I'm going to say I don't think Penn State goes crazy either. So I'm going to say 41-6 as a final score. I think Indiana can get into field goal range twice and kick a few field goals, but I'm not sure if they'll reach the end zone in this game. Penn State, once again, I think they could start a little bit slow and then pick up second, third, fourth quarter. I think the Lions come away with that 41-6 victory.
Okay, and like you said, that's not too bad. At least get something on the board.
Yeah.
Better than zero.
Right.
Okay, we'll see. Thank you so much, Zion, for coming on with us. Let's get back to Noel and me when we give our last-minute predictions for the game.
A top 10 matchup for the Hoosiers this weekend against Penn State. I know that I wouldn't want to play in that stadium as a visiting team. So, Liv, I need to know from you, how do you think the Hoosiers are going to fare this weekend?
I think it's unfortunate because I really don't see the Hoosiers going in knowing they're going to win. I mean, morale's low. I think, and that's what's making it really hard. I think you see it in press conferences too. No one's talking high, right? No one's trying to say, we have potential. I mean, yeah, you're probably losing by 30, but give us something, go in with a little more confidence. I think as long as IU just scores, at least get on the board, whether that is through field goal, through touchdown, offense, or defense, it could give them a little spark. I just don't think going to Happy Valley is good for anyone.
No, and that's a good way to put it. Yeah, I kind of feel the same way, Liv. In a presser with Coach earlier this week, he was basically saying he knows that at this point in the season, morale is low, like you said, and guys are kind of going through it. Not only just because you're losing, there's been some injuries overall. Maybe some guys aren't happy with their playing time, their execution, stuff like that. So really, it's just about finding specific things that you can latch onto for a season, whether it be a good play, a good drive, maybe even a good game against Penn State. I don't know. Crazier things have happened.
I think a good game for IU isn't going to be winning Penn State. It's going to be showing that offensively we can find a flow. Yeah. I think if IU can kind of show that they have some weapons out there on the field and let them kind of test things out. Don't test out quarterback positions. We're done with that. We're done testing QBs, but wide receivers, running backs, like you said, not the Jalen Lucas show anymore. But I do think that can make it a good game for them. I think a good game is just going to be scoring, showing a little bit of strength on the field.
Me personally, I think that IU is going to drop this one. My official score prediction will be 41-10. Now, this is a little bit closer than I think a lot of people would say. For some reason, in my mind, I just think that IU is going to get into the end zone. I have a feeling they're going to get into the end zone on something crazy like that, McCauley touchdown agained Michigan. I think it's going to be something weird, a trick play. Who knows what could happen.
I'm gonna say, okay. I usually shoot for the fences for IU. I think this game, though, unfortunately, basing it off the attitude that's been presented, the morale going into this game, I'm gonna say 49-7. I think it's gonna be a hard loss for them. But like you said, they have potential. They're always strong at the beginning. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and say they'll score probably in that first quarter. And then after that, I think Penn State will figure them out pretty quick and kind of take over.
All right, well, we'll have to wait for this weekend.
Exactly.
Thank you all so much for tuning in to this week's episode of Hoosier Game Day, brought to you by the Hoosier Network. Tune in, same time, same place next week for Dylan Traeger, Zion Brown, and Liv Clements. I'm Noel Fary. We'll catch you next time.